What is a gray market dealer? Well, let's stay tuned and find out from the man himself, the king of the gray market.
Well, Marco, thank you for such a wonderful intro. I wouldn't call myself the king of the gray market, but I certainly have enough experience to discuss the topic, and the reason for that is because I was there in the very, very beginnings of that market. I'm not going to say I was there in the very beginning because there was a big gray market prior to this little thing we call the internet, but it really got big at the time I got into the industry, got into the world of the World Wide Web, and never looked back. Yeah. Why don't we read, on the Gray Market magazine, by the way, if you guys haven't checked that out, luxurybazaar.com has a section called Gray Market Magazine with some really great reads. It's something very atypical, so definitely check it out. Yeah. We wrote an article on there, and by definition, a gray market dealer is what?
Just it's a retail operation that sells goods outside the official distribution network, right? Essentially, you have, when a watch is sold, you have two real systems, right? Either it's a boutique that's owned by the brand, or you have an authorized dealer that resells it brand new from, the brand itself, right? An authorized dealer can be carrying that brand and many others, or it can be carrying, for example, a watch. Some are just Rolex ADs exclusively, they sell jewelry also, things of that nature, right? But essentially you have that kind of two-party system, boutique or authorized dealer, that officially sell a brand new watch from the brands themselves. And you are rather, gray market dealers who are, for example, the people who will be the resellers of those watches, essentially.
So a reseller, I think, is a good example when it comes to brand new product. Of course, the terminology gray market and gray market dealer has kind of gone away as we know it. Yeah. I think the only reason that's still kept alive because we were bold enough to name our series Gray Market on YouTube, right? Yeah. And a dealer would never refer himself as a gray market dealer in my world because that was a derogatory term, believe it or not. But let me take it back 20 years and show you what the landscape looked like back then. It was the AD, the authorized dealer, that was king. The ADs, the network of ADs, are the ones that ran it because the model there, the boutiques were far few and in between. There were very little boutiques out there, right? We can go back the last 10 years and show how many times a brand has opened up their first official boutique in the last 20 years, right? So the boutiques were very, very seldomly built. So what they had is they had the following. They had the manufacturer directly to the AD at a discount, AD to the consumer. A lot of the manufacturers had manufacturer, distributor, AD, consumer. The distributors were usually regional. You had distributors for usually North, South America together, Asia, Europe, etc. Right? So the distributors played a humongous role in this, and I'll tell you why in a second. But that was the basic model, and the AD was the king because it was the AD that went to Basel every year, placed his orders with the company initially, picked up a new line, closed the line, placed his existing order for an existing line that he carried, and then would order throughout the year. And then what did the dealer do? They took it back to their store because the point of sales for these watches were what? It was the stores themselves. People, to buy a fancy watch, you went into a store and you bought it. And then eBay happened. And then Roman happened. And Irish Schneider happened out of Arizona. And 𝗿𝗏𝗏 from Florida happened. And then Seth from Essential Watches happened a year or so later. The 𝗵𝗍 watches happened, TikToking.com. Prestige, Ben from Prestige happened. And all these, literally only about a dozen of us happened, all of a sudden started putting these watches up on eBay, and everybody's saying, well, you crazy? Who's going to buy this on eBay? Like, are you nuts? Who's going to send you $10,000? But eBay was a novelty in its own. It was a trusted marketplace where people could buy stuff and feel somewhat secure, although fraud happened all the time, right? And the ADs were kings because the only place I could go to, really at the time, was to the ADs. And it was pretty standard back then. It was actually pretty much any brand under the sun. You would go into the AD and you buy 10 over cost. So and by 10 over cost, I mean 10% over cost. So if it's, the brand has a 45 offline, what was my cost?
I don't know.
39.5%.
I'm not that good. Not that good.
Most people would say 40 off, but no, it was actually 39. 10% over cost would be 39.5 off, right? And I would get the brand at 39.5 off, and I would sell it at 30 off. It was simple, cut, clear. When all that caught on, right, and stuff started selling on eBay, pre-owned stuff was also catching on. Where did the pre-owned stuff come? OGs on 47th Street. The OGs that had all the stock that would buy back from the clients for pennies and stuff like that. And we can go there, we could shop, we can buy this pre-owned Rolex, pre-owned IWC, pre-owned whatever, throw it up on eBay at a pre-owned price, and somebody would buy because it would be seemingly a better deal. Distributors held a tight noose around the ADs, but the ADs were still basically, it was the ADs that ran the show, as I said earlier. And the way they ran the show is because they were the ones performing, they were the ones selling. Since the ADs ran the show, that went on for a while. The stronger the internet got, the weaker the ADs got, and I'll explain. Because what the manufacturers were seeing is they were seeing these ADs starting to move enormous amounts of product. At that point, little did they know that the reason these ADs were pulling such record numbers because now they were selling to guys like us. A guy who was selling 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝐶 or Panerai or any, let's say, not even Rolex, seemingly not so hot brand, what do? They doubled, tripled their numbers in a matter of years. And the guys were like, wow, the manufacturers are wondering what's going on. Maybe the market is heating up. The watch market overall is heating up, and it was. Why? Because of the gray market dealers. But the manufacturers haven't caught on to that yet. So what do? It's like, oh, maybe we should start opening up boutiques and so on and so forth and limiting this product. Then they caught on to the fact that these guys were just wholesaling to internet guys and selling stuff online. So they started shopping us online. Hey, who's wholesaling these watches, right? And depending on economical landscape at the time, remember, we're going into a time like the '08 financial crisis, right, where things flipped upside down. What the manufacturer has always done is they work with specific people and they sold them what's called closeouts, overruns, right? They manufactured too much, the demand wasn't there, because the manufacturers were at the mercy of the ADs. It's whatever the ADs ordered. There was no such thing, oh, you have to take all this. It's like the AD came in, he ordered. Again, some brands commanded that, obviously, but some didn't. And what were they stuck with? Leftovers. And you had OGs in the business, I'm not going to mention any names, but one of them owns probably the biggest internet company today, would come into these manufacturers that would buy these closeouts. What did they do? They had wholesale companies. And what did the wholesale companies do? They would wholesale out to a network of dealers everywhere, authorized or not authorized, at a discount. So I remember I came across a Roger Dubuis clothes. I was buying the stuff at 25 cents on a dollar, right? And reselling it online at half off and making a killing because there was no competition, right? They would take that chunk of product and they would resell it throughout all these different channels, be it stores on 47th Street, be it dealers that work out of their house. Gray market dealers did work out of their house, word of mouth type of deal, no internet, no Instagram. And eventually it got to guys like us because it was the internet guys that were able to move high volumes of these closeouts. I remember the MDM Hublot closeout, pre-Hublot days, those little tiny MDM Hublots, which were selling like hotcakes, believe it or not. They were cheap. Retail was $8,000. I bought them at 30 cents on a dollar, sold them for $3,000, made, 40, 50% profit, right? And then as the times changed, as the economical landscape changed, demand for watches grew, what ended up happening is slowly but surely manufacturers are realizing that I don't need to give up that extra 40, 45% margin, or in some cases Keystone Brands 50% margin. But what can we do? We have this entire lineup of authorized dealers. And what happened? We went into an era where the AD started feeling the squeeze. Yeah. On the one end, you had the manufacturer squeezing them, saying, hey, don't wholesale to the internet guys, you're doing this wrong, and this, that, I caught your watch here, I caught your watch there. And at the same token, their business was going down because they lost a big chunk of that to the online platforms. And now what happens, the grays were squeezing the ADs because when we take the same watch, they would sell, not allowed to sell at a discount in their store, which they were discounting anyway. Yeah. We would blatantly put it online at 30 off, here, come buy it from us, and actually deliver, gaining a rapport through time. And now the AD was being squeezed. And that's when the manufacturers came in and said, hold on a second. The demand is there. We're selling a ton of watches. The market is obviously eating it up. We created this entire gray market, secondary market, which is pretty soon going to exceed the primary market, and it did. All these numbers that are throwing out there, 60 billion in watches in industry, how much of that do you think the gray market is responsible for? More than 50%, right? So what happened was that the AD slowly started getting squeezed. They started opening up boutiques. When they opened up boutiques, they did boutique-only exclusives, so people would go to the boutique and buy that watch, and the authorized dealers were stuck between the manufacturer squeezing them, the gray market dealers squeezing them, and that business formula, guess what, has all but died now. How many ADs that I know in the last 20 years that I've done business with are no longer there?
Yeah, it was also a different system back then, right? So we have to put it into context. When you were a quote-unquote eBay dealer or online reseller kind of thing, right? It was a different system in that watches consistently traded under retail, right? It was not at all a market that we see today where you'd go in and you can basically have an economy, right? And everything is available online, right? With one click of a button, you're on Chrono24, you could see 800 listings for the same watch. So it was a completely different system back then in that, for one, the visibility was a lot smaller, right? This was when the internet was just starting, right? Second was AD was really forced to only sell to local people, essentially, right? Whereas you had, I mean, really the world was your oyster, right?
The first watch I sold on eBay was a Royal Oak chronograph, 𝗕𝗫𝗍 limited edition, the stainless steel, for $8,800 to a guy in Germany.
Right. So you could sell theoretically to anywhere in the world, you know, if obviously shipping allowed. And then you also had a scenario where boutiques were essentially wholesaling out their watches to retailers who were then kind of, I mean, making a small kind of haircut on your watches, you know, a small margin basically for their operations and cover costs and what have you, and moving product for you. And then once actually they call wind of this, they say, well, why am I wholesaling out to an AD when I could just get full retail for it to somebody like you?
They first started cutting out the distributors. I think the worst distributor was the distributor for 𝗕𝗏𝗬𝗎, right? And this is a guy that was getting.
Now, was this pre-Richemont? Just
yes,
to put into
yes.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a guy that was buying his inventory at 25 cents on the dollar. It was a Keystone brand. Keystone meaning 50 off. And he was supposed to wholesale it to his network of dealers, build up the network of dealers, open up lines. This is the distributor's job, right? If you get a contract with a brand to be an exclusive distributor for a region, your job was to go out there and build out that business. Right. Be present at the Basel shows, go door to door kind of thing, and build these relationships and create these dealers and sell them these lines. Well, the guy took an easy way out and decided, you know what, why am I going to do that? My cost is 25 cents on the dollar. I can wholesale the stuff at 30 cents all day, turn product like crazy. But what happened is it flooded the market. And it also happened around the time where the internet was starting to blow up, and it was very, very visible, where before it wouldn't be. So distributors were eventually squeezed out, and now the ADs are being squeezed out just the same, right? Most ADs you walk into, they don't really have the popular brands. AP point of sales went down to almost nothing, you know, minus the bigger names, Booker, things of that nature, right? And Richard Mille, same thing, right? Rolex, more or less same thing. It's becoming tougher and tougher and tougher to at least open up a new point of sale for Rolex, right? They weren't as bad with their authorized dealers as some of the other brands, because their production numbers are still so big, they still need them. But I think it's only a matter of time till they go away as well.
Yeah, I think that also speaks to the nature of how the watch market changed, right? Nowadays we see far more, I guess you want to call them watch dealers as opposed to gray market dealers, than you ever saw before, right? And what essentially happened was also a changing of the watch market. Before, where you needed kind of ADs to sell product and be able to reach the end client, nowadays, I mean, again, it goes back to the whole boom of the internet, social media, all this stuff. Brands don't really need to rely on that.
They have their own websites now.
It doesn't even make sense for them to rely on something like that, right? Because they can just essentially sell directly, I mean, even just from their website. Omega now sells watches direct from their website. You want to order an Omega watch?
Jaeger, Cartier.
Correct.
Majority of the Richemont groups do that.
Yeah, so the point, or Swatch, Omega Swatch as well does it. So you can literally buy direct from the brand now, because they realize at a certain point, why would we allow an authorized dealer to retail our watch when we can just make that margin just the same? So I think definitely having the watch market boom that we did essentially created the rise of gray market as we know today.
Two booms,
right?
Don't forget. Before your time, 06, 07, leading up to the 08 crisis, beginning of 08, was another boom in the likes of what we just saw. Again, different price levels, right? But different times.
But similar kind of boom.
But a similar type of trend. The difference is that the 08 was actually a crash, and right now we're seeing a correction. So those are the key differences. But still, you know, some will call it a crash, some will call it a correction, but I just say prices went down. You can call it whatever you want.
Exactly. If you look at I mean, we just did this analysis, right? A 15202 in 2016, it makes me shed a tear, was trading, we actually sold one for $20,000, whereas the market price today is $85,000 in a 6-year span, right? If you want to call that a crash, I mean, I'm more than happy to entertain.
Go to our eBay store.
Yeah.
Our eBay store is 20 years old. Go to our eBay store, and if you have the kind of time, you know, go to feedback and click the max number of rows allowed and go to the very last page. It'll take you about 5 minutes to click until you get to the very first pages of feedback and read some of my responses going back 20 years. I mean, 50s, a Patek 30, thank you for your purchase, a Patek 3712, $24,000. Like, you know, a 5712, 5980 stainless steel, $26,000. Like, some of the prices are insane, but let's get back on topic. So the definition, in layman's terms, the definition of a gray market dealer is someone that's not authorized by the manufacturer, as you said, to sell the product that they're selling. one of the things that people need to understand right off the bat, which is why we're still all here and the business is bigger and better than ever, and I'm not talking about, when I say we, I don't mean our company, I mean every reseller out there, because reseller is really a good way to look at it, is because it's nothing that's illegal.
Right.
You are allowed to take a product and you are allowed to resell it. So a gray market dealer is somebody that in the watch world, I will define a gray market dealer going back before my times, guys on 47th Street, guys that worked out of their home, guys that had access to product through a network of authorized dealers or distributors to be able to buy this product.
I think one thing that also distinguishes a gray market dealer from other, I guess you can call, let's even just stick with an AD, for example, right? An AD will be very specific in terms of what they sell, right? So they can sell, let's say they sell Swatch brands, they sell 𝗏𝗏𝗧, 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 Blancpain, and that's pretty much all they can sell, right? We have a slogan here at Luxury Bazaar, is rare is what we do, right? Because we can literally sell anything that we want, and we do sell stuff that are sometimes one-off pieces, sometimes extremely rare pieces. Sometimes we're the only ones on the market listing a specific watch,
or sometimes something at some ridiculous deal, like 80% off on a closeout that we picked up.
And the point is, right, is that we're essentially, or at least you are, because you've been doing this so long, you've pretty much handled every watch known to man at this point, a product expert, right? You are able to see, handle, and know a watch in greater depth than really anybody else that can work in the business as a single lone distributor or authorized dealer for a brand, right? And I think that's what helps distinguish.
So would we add on to the definition that we're able to sell what we want without restriction, unlike some of the ADs?
Exactly, yes.
And we're also not geographically tied.
Exactly. I think that's an important distinction, right? Because again, an AD has, technically they don't have to, but they're supposed to sell to somebody at least local to them, right? That's at least from what I've been told the rules, right? So somebody in Germany can't necessarily sell to someone in the United States, whereas
unless somebody's traveling and walks into their store.
Correct, exactly. So that's kind of the idea. I think another thing that distinguishes gray market dealers is the network that we have, right? An authorized dealer, again, in a local region will not have the same network that you've built over the last 20 years, right? Be it wholesale, be it retail clients, be it everything in between, right?
From Australia to Africa to all of Asia to pretty much every spot in the Middle East. Well, Kabul is not so nice this time of year, but pretty much every hot spot in the Middle East, to all of the United States, to all of South America. There isn't a place on earth where I can't go into my phone and actually find someone that I know in a region. How many times, have I had a client somewhere in some remote country that wanted to sell something and I didn't really know him? Say, oh, why don't you go to such and such guy in that town? If you're close by, you can drop the watch off there. Once everything checks out, I'll send you a wire, right? If the guy wasn't comfortable shipping something. Those type of connections exist only in the gray market world. And the reason they exist in the gray market world is because, again, 3 little words: World Wide Web.
Yeah.
And with the World Wide Web, the world opened up to every single tiny little corner of Earth, and it became accessible to us through this little love for watches. And that's what makes us well networked, if you will. I used to have literally, we wrote today would be an app, but back then we wrote a program that actually automatically took my inquiries from the website, converted it to an inquiry to an authorized dealer, and it did it automatically. If somebody inquired about a Blancpain, I had a network of 40 Blancpain dealers, an inquiry would automatically go out to them without me even touching it, and I would get a response back saying, hey, I have it in stock, or I can order 2 weeks delivery. And it almost got to a point where the system became an AI type of system, but then technology moved on us and it only made sense to go out of the box website solution, so we got away from the custom code that we had. It was just too cumbersome to upkeep. But that system became almost artificially intelligent to where you could go onto my website, hit the inquire button about a particular watch. The system would automatically send that inquiry to a bunch of authorized dealers, shift through the 50 responses that I would get, pick the best price and the fastest delivery, automatically respond to a client, and if they said yes, it would send out a checkout invoice. It was pretty badass.
Which is pretty nuts, right? Yeah. A lot different than what we see today, right? Nowadays, let's say somebody like myself, Nick, Alex, even yourself can't exactly reach out to an AD and say, oh, I want to order this watch.
We still can.
Yeah, I mean, you can, but not to the same level, not to the same degree, right? If I wanted a two-tone date just for 30 off, it's not happening, right? It's a very different market, and it speaks to how the watch market has changed, right? It's really become an economy of sorts, right? Watches are a traded commodity. Now, let me ask you, if somebody is, fresh to the watch business, they don't know much about watches. Why should they buy from a gray market dealer as opposed to maybe an authorized dealer?
Well, so it used to be that our number one selling point back when we started was we were cheaper.
Yeah.
Today, the number one selling point is we have it.
Yeah.
That's it. We have it. Sometimes we have it cheaper because we also carry pre-owned goods, right? A lot of ADs don't carry pre-owned goods. They don't want to, pieces till this day, how many trades I buy from ADs that I used to like order new stuff from back in the day. They don't want to deal with the pre-owned aspect of things. It's as much as you guys always hear is, oh yeah, the watch comes with a 2-3 year warranty, it's been serviced. Do you guys know how big of an expense and pain in the ass service is when it comes to pre-owned watches that you buy from us? It seems like, oh, you get the watch, it looks nice and pretty, it's got a new strap, somebody did a good job polishing the watch up, it looks pretty much new, but the process behind it, just to give you, put it in perspective, $2 to $3 million are frozen in inventory for us at any given time that's in service.
Right. That's
to the extent that you have to deal with, especially when you move in volume. A lot of ADs don't want to deal with that. So I have been asked this question many, many times over. So everything else changes with times. Today, if before it was the price, right, because availability was ample. Today, it's availability. It's the ability to buy a product pre-owned and also save some money. But for the most part, it's the ability to get something that you basically can't get in an authorized dealer. Let's talk about vintage. Let's talk about rare pieces. Let's talk about one-off pieces, right? How many one-of-a-kind pieces do we have in the safe? Nobody else in the world has them. So you don't really have a choice. The gray market almost made it as if people don't have a choice, and it also made it their number one go-to. Yeah. The idea of the gray market saving you dollars, right? It's still, even though in today's world where watches are trading 2x, 3x, and 4x in some cases, that idea is still embedded in the back of people's heads, like, I'll still save money on the gray market. Of course, it's being overran by the idea of, oh my God, these guys actually have 10 GMTs in stock. I don't want to wait 3 years, I want to get it now, right? Yeah. And that's really one of the biggest reasons. And then again, there's also guys like Marco. About to give you a compliment, ready? There's also guys like Marco. I dare you guys, any one of you out there, I'm not even going to talk about me, I'm going to talk about Marco. I dare you guys to get out there and go visit 5 authorized dealers and ask him to tell you about every finish on the watch, what's inside the movement, when it was first created, who invented it. The knowledge aspect on the gray market far supersedes that of, how about the last Rolex video we just did? How many salespeople do you think can run through that little bit of history that me and you ran to in 10 minutes and tell you about it? Because what have these salespeople become? It used to be, yes, those were the knowledgeable guys, used to be able to walk into a boutique, used to be able to walk into authorized dealers, and these people would give you all this knowledge, this wealth of knowledge, help you make a decision, educate you. Yeah. But now
they don't need to. The product sells itself.
Now the product sells itself. So the quality of that salesperson behind the counter has also diminished over time. Now, I'm not saying they're all like that. There's plenty of guys that are, they work in ADs or boutiques, et cetera, that are super passionate about watches and the world of watches, and they have tons of knowledge. But overall, the knowledge and the education has also shifted to the gray market. But then you have things like flexibility. How many clients do we have here that will call us in, like, hey, Roman, I want this watch. The other day, I sent out a $300,000 watch. The guy's like, I'm going to be able to pay you in 30 days. Here you go, no problem. What AD does that, or what boutique does that, right? Or how about the flexibility? And here's another big deal: trades. Yeah. You cannot walk into an IWC boutique and trade in the old IWC. Well, I don't know, maybe they started doing that already.
Maybe, yeah. I don't think so.
I don't, but some are catching on, right? Yeah. Let's say even if IWC or a particular boutique says, yes, you can trade in your own product at half off, we'll give you the new one, we'll take it in, service it, resell it on the refer. I think IWC is actually doing that right now. But if you walk into IWC, you can't trade in your Rolex. Yeah, sure. You can walk into Luxury Bazaar or any other companies out there, be it Watchbox and some of the other bigger guys. You can trade in pretty much anything. How many times have I've taken cars in for trade? I've taken Birkin bags for trade, jewelry for watches, watches for jewelry. Anna has taken in purses, gold, like all these things, because guess what? The gray market dealer is always willing to wheel and deal, regardless of the situation or how unique it may be. This doesn't happen in the world of boutiques. This doesn't happen in the world of authorized dealers. Everything is still very stuffy and intimidating till this day. And that's the last point I'm going to make. Gray market dealers are very, very open. They're very accessible, and they're not intimidating. We had a football player in here earlier today that we spent this guy was ready to spend money. Did we sell him a watch? No. We showed him dozens of watches, And he really liked an MB&F, if you remember. What's the first thing I told him? I said, I'm not going to sell you this MB&F until you go and do some homework and really figure out the right reason you would buy this watch, not just based on its aesthetics and its looks, right? Because this is not a watch you buy unless you know on the whim. You walk into the AD, they'll try to like push that watch down your throat.
Yeah.
So it's that comfort level. I'm a watch dealer of 20 years. So I still, till this day, walk into like some of these fancy boutiques, like actual manufacturer's boutiques, and I feel a little bit of an intimidation. That sort of that, not even intimidation. That I would
like
call
your
it,
eyes are on
yeah,
you,
like the
yeah.
pressure, like the guy with the suit with the white gloves, and you feel pressure. You don't feel comfortable just walking in and looking around.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of thing. I actually tried to walk into a Rolex boutique about a year back at the Design District. I was in Miami. I'm like, hey, maybe they have something. Let me walk in there, see if I can pick something up, right? Yeah. As I'm walking across the street, the guy comes out of the Rolex boutique, one of the employees goes, oh my God, Roman Sharper, what's your videos? I'm like, there goes that idea.
Yeah, I'm still on a Rolex AD waitlist.
So to reiterate, it's the accessibility, it's the availability, it's the personalized service. Because guys, you have to remember something. Every single inquiry that comes through here, be it a DM, a WhatsApp, a text, a phone call, an email, whatever it might be, the sales staff is right there on point, paying 100% attention to this. People get back to you almost immediately because we value every single piece of business that walks in here. Alex, the other day, spent an hour on the phone with a guy that wanted a $50 Timex watch, but guess what? He still gave him the same amount of time he would give to a guy with a Patek, right? That's the nature of the beast and how these shops are set up, where I think points of sales, be it boutique, be it authorized dealers, they've gotten what's the good look? Comfortable?
Yeah.
To where, I mean, look, but then again, I don't blame the guys there either. How many times a day can somebody walk in and say, I'd like to get a Datejust, and they say, sorry, it's a display model only, let me get your information and put you on the list, I'll get back to you in 6 years. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, buying from a gray market dealer has a lot of advantages. And mind you, this entire time, I'm not telling you this because I want to tell you that there's a disadvantage of buying at ADs, a disadvantage of buying at
authorized
dealers, et cetera, right? I can only speak for myself and say that, look, I know what type of experience you're going to get. Now, there are some crappy gray market dealers out there that are out there for a cash grab, don't really have a real system in place, guys working out of their basement and so on and so forth. Absolutely. Can you have bad experience? You could probably have more bad experience in some cases in the gray market than you would with an AD, right? But that's because the business has now changed. And that brings me to the next topic. You're probably going to ask me, what's the landscape look like today versus 20 years ago? Yeah. And the landscape is much differently. First of all, you have a lot of individual sellers out there that used to be collectors, they now turn watch dealers. Right. They used to be guys that said, you know what, I have some spare time. Basically what I did 20 years ago.
And they would trade watches here and there, and
exactly.
Then eventually
20 years ago, for 3 years, this was a part-time thing for me. I worked at Deutsche Bank. I commuted 2 hours each way to New York. I worked 60-hour weeks, and on top of that, I sold watches on eBay and was buying and trading watches. It was really, really hard. But the difference between then and now is that back then it was literally a dozen guys doing it. Now you have thousands of guys that are doing this. Which, by the way, this correction was good for the industry because a lot of those Corona dealers, as I call them, they sort of fell out and went on to do something else. But the difference is this, and people always ask me, well, how do I know who's good, who's bad? Everybody's Instagram page can look seemingly the same and big badass. You live in the age of the internet. Check out the company, right? If you have a company that's continuously been running for 20 years and people say, well, anybody can say I've been continuously running for 20 years. Well, we have the simplest proof. Go to our eBay. You can literally see 20 years worth of feedback, and it's 100% positive, right? Yeah. So, although not a whole lot of watch sales later, eBay, because eBay is sort of a dying platform when it comes to selling watches, but in the beginning it was all the rage. For years, I sold more stuff on eBay than I did on my own website. But if you do your homework and you figure out who you're dealing with, I tell people to look for 3 key things. Number 1, just shop at luxurybazaar.com. Number 1.
Reach out to me personally.
Reach out to Mark, right? No, number 1 is you look at the company you're dealing with, the longevity of the company. There are records out there, right? You know, of how much business the company's done over the years, how long they've been open. You can look all those things up. Number 2, social media has become a big help. when you get out to like our company has 14 different Instagram accounts, YouTube channel, and you see consistent content daily being put out that shows the entire office, the operation, you kind of get a feel of what the company is like. You know, an Instagram with just wrist shots on it is maybe something you should look into, right? We have a physical address, you can come visit us, right? We're open, we'll just ring the doorbell, right? And most of all, I think what's most important is the warranty. It's the warranty that is provided, the warranty and the return policy, right? So the warranty that's provided by, when a gray market company is able to provide a warranty, like, I'm not providing a warranty to deal with issues later down the line. I make sure that that watch doesn't come back within the warranty period, because then it's going to cost me money and there goes my profit, right? Because we don't work on such huge margins. So it's in our interest to make sure that the watch is properly serviced, goes to you, works properly for preferably more than the warranty period, and it doesn't come back because it comes back on us. No matter how many times you can tell a client, well, I'm sorry, I did not make the watch, I just sold the watch, they're still going to hold you responsible. And return policy is another one, right? People order a watch from us and we tell them, 7 days, I don't care if your cat doesn't like it, send it back. Here's a label, right? That's another important factor to look at. And
I mean, even we've gone to become a one-stop shop for watch collectors, right? The only thing, I mean, we now even offer an opportunity for people to reach out to you guys who can insure their watch collections, right? We're now partnering with Wax. So the point is level of comfort with dealing with the gray market dealer. You don't have the pressure. I can't even tell you how many people I've told, like, listen, no pressure at all. I'm never going to push you one way or another, right? Please take the time.
Here's the info, make a decision.
Exactly. Second is also the product knowledge, right? You go into an authorized dealer, they've gotten comfortable. They're not going to have the same level of product knowledge someone like yourself, I like to believe myself, or any of the guys who work for us will have. I think also one thing to mention that you hit on was, 20 years ago it would have been, oh yeah, I can get it for a lot cheaper. And I still think that's true today. I mean, you walk into a Rolex authorized dealer, you ask them for a GMT Master 2 Pepsi. What are they going to tell you? Yeah, buy this, this, and this first. So your Pepsi became a $10,000, that is a $10,000 retail watch.
$9,250, I think.
Right, that became ultimately a $30,000+ watch because you had to establish a relationship, purchase history, also factor in the time that you spent at the AD, the gas getting there, so on and so forth. Right, it became
did you really just go to the gas prices? You went to the gas prices.
What can I say? What can I say, right? So a $35,000 Pepsi versus where you can reach out to one of us and it's actually, no, you can get it for about $18,000.
I'll give you the worst story. So how many times a day do our clients call? It's like, hey, I'm at my AD or I'm at this thing. They want me to buy this, that, and then I'll get this. What do you think? And we sit there and do the math and tell them exactly what you just said. And then I think the worst story I've ever seen is I had a client call me and said, listen, it was a Platinum Daytona.
Oh.
So at the time, retail on the Platinum Daytona was $90,000. They were trading at about $120. So it's about a $30,000 difference. He's like, but they want me to buy this pair of hoop earrings. And I'm like, well, how much are the hoop earrings? He's like, they're $30,000. I'm like, diamond? He's like, no, they're ruby hoop earrings, right? Now, for those that know jewelry, 90% of the rubies that are out there in fashion jewelry, they're glass filled, not even synthetic, but they're glass filled, they're oil treated. They're not rubies that are expensive. Very clear, no pressure, right region type of rubies. They're more expensive than diamonds. They're very rare. But usually when they make fashion jewelry like hoop earrings or rings or cocktail rings and things like that, it's usually glass-filled ruby stuff that you can buy for $4 or $5 a carat, right? I say, well, send me the picture of these hoops. Are they by someone, like a brand name? They're like, no. He sends me a pair of hoop earrings. I walk over, I laughed. I walk over to Alex, my partner in the jewelry, and I'm like, Alex, somebody brought these to you, what would you pay? He looks at him, he's like, he doesn't ask me for the carat weight because he realizes what those rubies are, right? There's not even diamonds in that. Yeah. It's just pretty much gold and whatever. He's like, I would pay about $500, right? That's what those earrings were worth. So it's like, it becomes so blatant to where like, oh, I didn't sell him the Rolex over list. Rolex can't do anything, but he bought a pair of $30,000 hoop earrings that are worth $500. Right. That was like the worst story I've ever heard.
Yeah, so that's kind of the point, right? This whole idea that's lost on people is, oh yeah, I got a Rolex at retail. Okay, but what did you do to get it, right? I mean, the worst story I've ever heard was actually with your favorite brand, AP. I mean, this guy, I mean, I hate to blow him up, but we're talking about 3 Code 1159s and 2 ladies pieces, okay? Like, we're talking about like trading under 25% off retail just to get a 15500 ST Blue. I mean, that was, to me, like, your 15500 became $150,000.
Pretty
much.
Right,
after paying for the watch
And people also
right?
tend to look at it differently. They look at it like, okay, well, let's say I bought this watch that they sold me for $50,000. In reality, it's worth 30. I bought a watch that's 30,000. In reality, it was 60, and then seems to work out. But then you end up also with a product that you don't truly want.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean? And at the same token, you're afraid to sell it on the secondary market because they're going to get blacklisted, right?
Exactly.
But the worst of it is not just that. The worst of it is, A, buy this, then buy this, then buy this that you don't want, in hopes of me maybe getting you this.
Yeah.
And what,
I'll put you on the wait list.
Yeah, and what a lot of people,
we'll call you.
People ask me, like, is there such a thing as a wait list? Absolutely not. I guarantee you, and I know this firsthand without throwing any dealers under the bus, but there's plenty of authorized Rolex dealers out there that I know. Their safe is filled with Sky Dwellers, Daytonas, and all the hot stuff. Filled. There's no wait list. The wait list is when that dealer that receives that product chooses to release that product, and to whom. And that's really what it comes down to. Yeah. While at the same token, I'll say this, I don't blame them. Because if you go back, the last 2 years was the heydays of the ADs. The heydays came back for them. Those that were carrying particularly key brands that were super hot. Yep. Because prior to that, remember what I said, they were stuck being squeezed between the manufacturer and the gray market, and they were really, really, really doing bad. So when they got an opportunity to take full-blown advantage of the hot market as it was, they did exactly what they needed to do, and I take my hat off to them, and I'm actually kind of happy for them because they came up with this whole wait list thing that allowed them to make that additional income that they lost out on in the last few years prior to this boom. And that's why I don't blame them, right? And kudos to them, well deserved, because again, we're not maliciously squeezing out the authorized dealer network. The manufacturers are, but we're not. We're the byproduct of why they're being squeezed out, obviously, without really having any malicious intent behind it. This is just what happened, right? Move with the times.
Yep. Roman, thank you so much. It was really informative. I know I learned a lot. I hope all of you guys did as well. I hope this clarifies kind of what is a gray market dealer. And at the end of the day, I think it's quite clear, listen, there are some bad apples, but gray market is here to stay. And watch dealers like us, right, are here to help people who are passionate watch collectors, right? Because me and you started, we may be watch dealers now, for example, but we started as watch enthusiasts, right? We just love watches. I got into this business because I love the watches, right? It's because literally—
You guys know Marco's background, by the way? Why don't you tell them about what your background actually is?
Yeah, I mean, I have a Bachelor of Commerce, right? I worked in finance the majority of my life, right? Or at least while I was in school. So yeah, I got into this for the love of watches, right? And at the end of the day, I think that resonates with people, and it's why guys like us have become so successful in comparison to some of the others.
Marco, thanks for having it, guys. Make sure to tune in to the next episode of Under the Loop. I may not be the next guest and have FOMO again, but thanks for having me, Marco.
Hey, always a pleasure.